Hello and welcome to another video in the Blade series. Today, Scott and I will be looking into the future. Great Scott! Woo! It appears there's a tear in the space-time. Okay, I got to get through the second part before cracking up. It appears there's a tear in the space-time continuum. Oh, never mind. It's just Microsoft requiring everyone to upgrade and or replace their Windows 10 machines.
That's right.
Although it does sometimes feel like time is running out.
And it is.
So, Scott, to save everyone from panicking for no reason, let's review what this means to everyday people and what are some real actions we can do to get prepared. Short of building a time machine.
Of course.
So the first question is, what is the end-of-life date for Windows 10?
And that's the thing. Microsoft, when they release a new product, they also tell you when it's going to be killed. Or the end of its life.
Yeah, exactly.
So we've known this date for like 7 years or whatever when it's going to be.
Right.
A lot of people haven't thought about it. At this time we're recording this today, you're looking at 154 days. And that means that Windows 10 will no longer be supported by Microsoft. So what does that really mean?
Yeah, exactly. So what happens to Windows 10 systems after the end of life?
Yeah, what's going to happen is you're not going to notice a darn thing more than likely. Except a little nag screen that comes up and says, okay, this system is no longer supported or something like that, how Microsoft does it. So to you, as a normal user, it's going to look, okay, no big deal. However, there's a lot of other things that's going to happen because you're going to be much more vulnerable to a cyber attack at this point because the bad guys out there, let's say they have a exploit for Windows 10, but they've kept it in their back pocket and not used it. They wait till it goes out of life, and then they use it. And Microsoft's not going to provide security.
Yeah, they don't care.
Yeah, they're not bound to provide any security, no help at all. It's over with. Upgrade to Windows 11 will be their answer.
Yeah.
So it's best to get ahead of the curve, since it's essentially a free upgrade with some caveats that we'll talk about, and get ahead of that curve because there are bad guys waiting for this day in 154 days to pull the trigger on some bad stuff. It just happens every time we see this sort of release.
Yeah, so that's one of the many risks of continuing to run Windows 10. Are there any other ones?
Well, besides that, you could have compatibility problems with your software. It may require a certain level of Windows, and you don't have that, it's not going to install. So maybe if you rely, and I would see that probably happening with like big software packages like AutoCAD or the big Adobe suites and that kind of stuff. They want to stay on the most recent release of the Windows product because that's what they run on, that's what they code to, right? They don't want to run on Windows 7 anymore, right? They got to move forward on that. And that's something, the compatibility problems. Compliance issues is one too. We can talk about it a little bit later. But if you're in an industry that has any sort of regulatory body to report to, and that'd be like healthcare with HIPAA, or if you're a Department of Defense contractor, okay, you got to report to the DoD through the DFAR system and all that stuff, all these sort of things. If you look in the fine print of these little regulations, it says you must use a compliant and fully supported operating system. So just the act of not upgrading Windows 10 in the next 154 days or so will make you non-compliant in the eyes of HIPAA, DoD, da-da-da-da-da. And that's something I think will be a really low-hanging fruit for those auditors who are out in the field to grab because it's pretty easy to find out.
That's what I was thinking. Instant violation.
Yeah, instant violation. And also it could be viewed also as not just a whoopsie, but it's as a willful
negligence.
Willful negligence. Exactly right, which is bad. That's where they hit you over the head with the hammer.
They don't insure stupid.
No, not at all.
So what is the first step in planning a transition away from Windows 10?
That's a great question because, I think a lot of people are going to find that it's no big deal. No, they download it from Microsoft for free. They've got a licensed version on Windows 10. They load it 20, 30 minutes later, it's done. No big deal. That's one thing. You may find, though, that your hardware is not fast enough or doesn't have enough RAM or slow processor, all these technical stuff. Now, if you have that sort of thing, you might be a little stuck because you may have to upgrade your hardware to make sure it works with Windows 11. So the steps are, first, figure out what you got. Do an audit. Say, we have 35 notebooks running Windows 10 and 3 running Windows 7 or something like that, right? Find out what you have so you know how to fix it. Don't just go around and just randomly start doing stuff. IT pros know you got to have a plan before you do anything. So you want to look at your devices. What do you have? What operating systems are running on these devices? Are they vulnerable? Are they even patched currently? Well, get that done straight away because that's always a problem. And so you need to look at these software requirements too we talked about. In different industries, you may have like a small group of people, 3 or 4 people that run a specific little accounting program. Mm-hmm. Is that going to run when you got to go to Windows 11? Yeah. That's the due diligence you need to do as an IT pro to make sure that when the day comes and something breaks, it's got to be kind of hard to get somebody like us on the telephone because other people are going to be having problems too.
Yeah, don't wait until the last 2 weeks, right before October. Because I'll tell you from sheer experience that if you're that guy, we don't do it on purpose, but you're not getting called tomorrow.
Yeah. So. Unfortunately, that's we have so many resources to use, and when we have big things like this happen, I mean, you're right. It's the people we've worked with, and we have already done the planning and these sort of things. So that's a very good point.
Yep. So, what tool does Microsoft offer to check to see if your box is going to instantaneously fail?
Sure, they actually have it's basically the next generation of the tool we used when we had Windows 8 moving to Windows 10. It's a free tool you can download from Microsoft. You can call it PC Health Check and search that. It's also called the Windows 11 Upgrade Wizard or something like that. And basically, it's just a free product. You put it on your PC, you run it, runs for a few minutes, and spits back and says, you're okay to upgrade to Windows 11 today, for example. But probably more likely, it'll say, you cannot upgrade to Windows 11 today, and here's why. Yeah. And it'll list out what you need to do. Maybe your video card's a problem. TPM is going to be one of those things, those trusted protected modules that we use with security and fingerprints and all this stuff. Now, they're going to be requiring a TPM on many devices. There are also ways to get around that requirement as well, but then there's a question, have you then violated the license requirement with Microsoft, which makes you non-compliant, so you just shouldn't even update it to Windows 11 to begin with. So, but that you can do that. But that's the big thing. This new security chip needs to be on these new systems. So if you have a system, what do you say, John, like more than 5 or 7 years old, like a notebook?
Probably 5.
Yeah, probably 5. It's not going to have that TPN. And this health check or this application will check you, see if you're ready for Windows 11. We'll come back and tell you all these things. So then you know where you're at. So this kind of goes back on in to the the IT guys. Like if you're in a small business, maybe you're a 1 or 2 man IT shop, supporting a company. These are the types of things you need to jump on real quick. So you can figure out what you're going to have to go to management and say, hey, you need to write me a big check here by whatever day to upgrade all of our systems, for example.
And a little shameless plug, if you're using an IT vendor kind of like us, they should have the capacity to do a project with you where they have a methodology in place and a monitoring system in place that can tell them pretty much at a glance what's going to work and what's not, even without Microsoft's tools. So.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's important. Maybe as a second view too. Yeah. I haven't seen any the problems with the Microsoft PC Check tools coming up with bad answers, but hey, I mean, I'm sure they do. Yeah. So I think that's a good point. And any good IT firm worth their salt is going to have a whole toolbox of tools that'll be able to help people out with this.
So, we've mentioned upgrade a couple of times. Mm-hmm. So what are the available upgrade options for Windows 10?
Well, what the rules are is that if you're going to upgrade to Windows 11, you have to upgrade from a currently supported version of Windows. So what does that mean?
Yeah, no kidding.
So we're not talking Windows 8, not supported, right? Really, we're not even talking about Windows 10, the original version. It's not supported either. And I know when I was doing a little research prior to us sitting down and chatting today, really you have to be running Windows 10 version 22H2 or higher, which is the latest patch.
That's a pretty common, that's like the new one.
Yeah, it's the latest patch in the general availability stream that's been out to everybody. So, this is something, again, for the folks that are in an IT department. You may want to get one of these machines. You're going to have to upgrade and see what happens if it's not upgraded to this version 22H2. Is it still going to be working? Do you have to patch it up front? We're going to be running our own tests here. My gut feeling is what it'll find is, hey, you're not running the right patch. Here, take this patch. Yeah. And then it'll continue on. That's just kind of the Microsoft way of doing things.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, 22H2 is the one that has a pretty high failure rate on the machine.
Yeah, it has the couple of problems also with various technical issues that we ran into,
Yeah.
but they've also released a new version of 22H2.
Oh, so you could skip it and go, gotcha.
In theory, and hopefully they'll have a what we generally see as they're coming closer to a new version being released. The large patches for the old version get smaller and
yep.
smaller and smaller and smaller because they're taking all that new stuff and they're putting in the new thing. And that's another reason why Windows 10, after its end of life date, is a danger because it's got vulnerabilities that maybe Microsoft doesn't know about. Maybe they do, but they're not patching them either way. So that's just something to look out for.
Nice. So what should be prioritized when planning as part of your migration strategy?
Sure. Yeah, we talked about a little bit about that. Talked about finding out what you got. But, in that process of finding out what you have, you also need to take a look at it and look at what systems that are the most critical ones. Because, let's face it, if you had to pick a machine to burst into flames, would you rather have the receptionist's machine or the CEO's machine burst into flames, right? We treat all the people the same, but their systems there is a hierarchy there. And that's something you need to make sure that you take account that the CEO's systems get updated first. These sort of things, and any other critical systems, and know what those critical systems are. Anything handling sensitive data, anything that has client-facing responsibilities, like you have kiosks or anything like that. Also, anything that is the money collection action, right? Whoever's receiving money in your accounting department, make sure they can work too, because that's going to be really important. Because you might have, a little loss of productivity and cash while you're going through this process. So you don't want to have a bottleneck where you don't have any money coming in. So just, pretty much basic things you should know already. But if not, make sure that these things are addressed prior to doing a big upgrade like this.
Yeah, that's good information, along with, and you've touched on this a couple of times, but I want to make sure we nail it all the way down. What are some essential cybersecurity measures that I should take during the transition? Right,
and that's a good one too, because some people, when they go through these transitions, especially in small IT departments that don't have consultant support or external support, they're focused in, okay, we got to get Windows 10 upgraded to Windows 11. And then what happens is a lot of the other protections around the network start to deteriorate and not be watched as much and tuned and these sort of things. So you want to make sure you're still deploying endpoint protection out. You need to have a methodology before these brand new Windows 11 machines, for example, roll onto your network. They better have some endpoint protection, right? Antivirus, that kind of stuff on them before they touch your network. Otherwise, they could get infected by somebody else. You'd have a huge problem. So just make sure, that's deployed first. You want to have any legacy systems that you're not going to be able to upgrade. Microsoft's not going to make you upgrade anything. This is just a fact. You're not going to get patches. Now, some systems, I know we work with customers that have systems that are so old, so, accounting-based systems and so on, they have to run them like Windows 7. And things like that. Okay, that's fine. We just need to isolate those systems then. We want them air blocked from the entire network. If we need to get them network connectivity, we'll come up with some temporary solution, something like that, to keep them away from everyone else. So that's something else you can do with your Windows 10 machines, maybe that you can't upgrade, but they have essential data on them. Just isolate them somewhere else and create another network. And keep all your systems upgraded during this whole process too, because again, the bad guys, this is going to be like Easter and Christmas wrapped together for them. It happens every time that we have a major Windows update. There's some sort of zero-day threat that we don't know about yet, that they have in their back pocket, just waiting for the day they can pull it and get the most effect, i.e. money out of your pockets, for the bang for the buck, right? So that's the sort of thing you want to look at. So you always want to continue to monitor her for suspicious activity. If you did have a threat, maybe an advanced persistent threat on your network you didn't know about, he's going to see that traffic saying, oh, it looks like somebody's getting ready to update Windows 11 massively on a massive scale and that kind of stuff. So you got to watch out for that. Make sure you're monitoring for any suspicious activity, because there's going to be enough chaos during a larger upgrade anyway. Yeah. And that's what the bad guys really like to thrive on, is chaos. Continue to train your employees on phishing, update your backup, your disaster recovery plans, your instant response plans. Make sure all that stuff's still going while you're taking on this other big project.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then, so let's assume you don't have a 35-person IT firm or internal IT. How How can Blade assist in the transition?
Well, sure. Well, that's something, we would like to get involved immediately.
Yeah.
154 days sounds like a long time, but you got summer vacations and everything in between and so on. So there's only not that many working days to go. So what we can do is, again, the first step, we got to see what you got. We got to evaluate. And so that's something a lot of IT guys, they're too caught up in day-to-day user support and that sort of thing where they don't have a chance even to get like a clear eye on their IT infrastructure. And we can take a look at that, help document. That's something too. I know when I was an IT guy in the field, documentation was one of those things I just never could find the right time to get to, right? And for business owners, IT documentation is super important because what happens to your IT guy if he leaves and nothing's written down? So that sort of thing. So we can help you evaluate the IT infrastructure. We can help you with a mitigation roadmap of, here's the systems that are going to be non-compliant. Here's what we recommend to replace, what we recommend that we consolidate, what we want to isolate, these sort of things. We can also provide continuous network monitoring, see what the heck's going on. We can deploy endpoint protection remotely. We can enforce all the best practices for security, and that includes mobile devices, locking down the mobile devices, which is more and more important. I don't feel that anybody with a unmanaged device should be put on your network, period. I know here at John and I are both senior members here at Blade. Both of our phones are managed by the company. And that's just the way it needs to be nowadays. That's the only way to be sure, right? So, and then also we can always offer employee training and change management support and help you down that road. Other things, when was the last time you did a disaster recovery like walkthrough? Take your plan and do a tabletop exercise. We do those all the time with people. And even people we've worked with a lot, and we really have that plan nailed down. Every time we do a tabletop, we find out something new that we need to add to their plan to make it more effective for them. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
So I guess one of the last questions is, I'm going to jump off the building. Do I have a parachute? i.e., what's the importance of your secure and verified backups?
Well, yeah, sure. That's huge. We don't do any sort of big IT project without having backups of backups and have backups off-site as well, just in case something goes horribly wrong during the process. So yeah, make sure all your critical systems are backed up. Critical workstations would also fall into that before you upgrade them, because your upgrade could go bad. What are you going to do? It's not like if you're halfway through the Windows 11 install process and the power fails or whatever, you're hosed. You're not going back. It's not going to even turn on anymore. You're going to have to go all the way back to Windows 10 and the data and recover it and so on and so forth. So I think for all the IT pros out there, you guys get it. But all the home users and basic computer users and advanced computer users, you guys all need to know this too. Make sure you're backing up your data. The only data that you shouldn't back up is the data you do not want to keep.
Yep. So I guess the moral of the story is, Biff isn't here to steal your almanac. Your mom isn't in love with you, and you didn't accidentally break space-time. So
not this time.
Whew, that one was close. So you just need to make sure that if you have a PC, even a newer one, running Windows 10, that it gets upgraded to Windows 11 before November 5th, 1955. I mean, October 14th, 2025. Okay, I'll stop with the Back to Future jokes.
154 days at this taping.
Yep. So, Scott, as always, thank you so much for your insight and expertise in this. It's always nice to have your own handy super genius around. Just ask Marty. Had to get one more in there. Thank you all for watching. This is John and Scott from Blade. Take it easy.